Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the one, the only, welcome to EG Evolved ACC GT3 Championship Round 4 at the legendary circuit of Mount Panorama, located at Bathurst, Australia. We're down under tonight, and our drivers looking to conquer one of the most technical circuits out on Assetto Corsa Competizione and rivals the one and only Nürburgring 24-hour layout. This is going to be an interesting one. Over 6 kilometers, 23 corners, 14 lefts. Going to be an absolute challenge. And with the championship now at the halfway point for our season, it is all on to move forward. Drivers will charge down to Hell's Corner at turn 1 before gunning it down the straightaway into Quarry Bend for turn 2. Make their way up the cutting as they charge up the mountain before they get to Salmon Park, head to Mathilini Park, into Skyline, and immediately start working their way down through the Dipper, down to the Forest Elbow. And it deserved its name after someone broke their elbow there. One of the motorbikers that landed up racing later on. Down the Hanger Straight, also known as Conrod Straight. And they will make it through the short little kink that's in between it before they make their way into the chase. A very hard-braking zone that can either work in your favor or you're going to visit the sandpit into that corner. Bail your way through, and it's into Murray's Corner, the final corner, which we've seen some massive passes in the past that makes or breaks the championships. And with our drivers now looking to move on forward, they're looking to set the pace around Mount Panorama. This is going to be an interesting one, and already qualifying is underway. So let's go down to our qualifying and take a look at what is happening, because at the moment, it is going to be the one, the only Jason Farmer finding himself right at the top of the field, ready, pushing hard. Got out the pits first and looking to make it work, but in the championship for our Pro-Am, it is a bit of an interesting time. It is close, but with no one having a certainty of who is going to stay ahead of the pack. It's Kieran Harris that holds on to the lead with Yaku Nadir. So keep an eye on the Midnight Racing that currently leads. Yaku Nadir following close by in his Ford Mustang, with Gerard Pretorius looking to try and capture the gold as well. They're incredibly close in the championship points and wanting to make it work here tonight. However, they're going to have to think a little bit outside the box. Chris Emerson, Michael Schultz round out your top 5 in the Pro-Am field. But taking a look at the Pro, it's going to be Bego Frobler. So far has been on a dominating run out in the Lamborghini for Team Wolf. He's ahead of Jason Farmer in second place. Henry Platt holds on to third, with Sean Herrera and Bruin Heineke backing up that fourth and fifth, looking to see what they can do. Now Bego holds into 8th position as Jared puts himself right to the top of the leaderboard. Michael Schultz holds on second as he does get beaten out, and Henry Platt starts putting a time in to move on forward. A big welcome to everyone out in the virtual grandstands. Welcome to Down Under, and I hope that you had a safe flight here all the way out to Australia, out in the virtual grandstands, and you're looking forward to the battles. We have got Derek Bakum, who's going in supporting Team Wolf, Ulrich Diaga for the Griffin Sim Racing, Antonia Gamble saying, Jason Farmer, my boy, and go Griffin Sim Racing as well. And to everyone out there going and cheering on from the sidelines and being a part of the show, it's wonderful to have you guys here in the virtual grandstands. Now, Henry Platt and Jared hold on to the top 2, looking to try and see what they can do to make it work. Jared has been slowly but surely getting used to this McLaren to ultimately stay in for the fight. However, it is going to be an interesting one to see if he can really make it work here tonight. Martin Rotenbach holds on to 3rd place. It's been a solid effort on his part thus far, leading out the Pro-Am with Michael Schultz of the Hydraulis Engineering holding on for 4th. Chris Heineke up into the top 5 with Thierry Duplessis chasing him down in 6th position. Likes of Jan Verveers, Alan Patson of PWSR, Jack Darts in 9th position, and Jaco Nadir finds himself in the top 10 at the moment, just getting put down low as Jason Farmer holds on to the lead. Bego Krobler fires back. So far, these drivers going one step further, but Jared Bakum has come back fighting this evening, going and putting in an absolutely solid time of a 2:07 as he came across the line, looking to really go and dial things up a little bit further here tonight and make sure that he can stay in for the fight. Jared Allen, that McLaren, definitely not showing any battle remorse at the moment, wanting to fight out with every one of our top runners here tonight. But Jason Farmer holding on 2nd place, Bego Krobler into 3rd, Henry Platt finds himself in 4th place with the BMW. Sean Loureiro comes across the line. He holds on to the top 5. Michael Schultz holds on the lead for the Pro-Am, trying to find that little bit of a run. Jaco Nadir and Alex Everingham from the Extreme Sim Racing going and finding themselves in 9th position. Little bit of pressure for the Extreme Sim Racing now that they're going and streaming their point of view across 3 different platforms. All eyes are going to be going on them for every sort of drive and mistake that may come through. So the drivers have been warned, keep it out of the walls. Jan Verveers out in the trail bullets, hoping to get a solid result. And we did see at Imola, he was more than happy to put the fight forward. He was more than happy to try and fight for the lead in the class. But I have to see what he can do here tonight around a absolutely treacherous circuit that, as you can see, just can claim drivers, as Rowan Heineke finding out a little bit of a hard one, unfortunately, up against the Ford Mustang of Christian Zetzman, who collected that wall. But Christian is not alone here tonight, all the way from Liberia. We've got Ludwig Zetzman for the Ebb and Flow car, and he finds himself out there in the Audi R8 that he's campaigned over the years here in the world of RaceFace.Pro, and he's joining his brother back out on the circuit. It's going to be a sporadic appearance for the driver, but coming out from Liberia, from work in Liberia, he's hoping to go and keep the Zetzman names out onto the circuit as their father does in the world of real racing. Now, 2 minutes, 0.127, set by Bego Krobler with his teammate holding 2nd place. They're going to help pull each other along. At the moment, Bego caught behind Michael Schultz as they charge up the hill. Now, with that being said, let's quickly take an onboard look of Michael Schultz as he makes his way through turn 3, gunning it up the hill. You can see how these drivers have to run incredibly close to the wall, trying to really step up that pace and try and carry all the acceleration through into McPhillamy Park, into Skyline. It is just a breath away from disaster as they charge their way down. This is heading towards the dipper. It's gentle through the gears, gentle on your braking to try and make it work, but you've got to be so careful not to go too far. You can land up collecting the wall, as we've seen, into the forest elbow, hook a left-hand drive, and that big Bentley signage on the side is like a magnet to draw you in, flat out down Conrad. This is an optimum slipstreaming way to move on forward, and the drivers will be thinking, right, what do I need to do to really make it work here tonight to ultimately stay at the shop into the field. Through the kink, now it's into the final braking zones. Down the gears, down to 2nd, carry the revs back up into 3rd. As you stare down the final corner, it's make or break on the diving marks to try and see what you can do. Hard on the anchors, bring it down to 2nd. Some engage first there with a little bit of a confidence break, but it's down the straightaway and towards the line, which is incredibly close. So don't think that you're going to have that easy run through the field. Now, with that being said, Alan Patterson finds himself up into 2nd place in his class, 6th overall. He's sitting right behind Jared Bakum, who so far has been taking the fight to the sharp end of the field, really going and forcing the pros to think outside the box and utilizing the toe. He's going to be getting a little bit of word from Derek back in the pits. Just saying, right, let's focus up. Let's concentrate on what we need to do and to make this happen. Michael Schultz finds himself up into third place. First in class. This is a solid run for Michael Schultz, who has been on a solid charge up through the order, getting quicker and quicker on his return back to the ACC scene and really showing what he can do as a driver that is confident out there. Henry Platt sits behind Chris Heineke as he finds his way through the field. Now, Chris hasn't had the easiest of championship runs thus far, with the Griffin Sim Racing team having to really fight through some difficulties out there. Henry Platt will be looking to try and clear past as they will line up side by side at the moment. Vessel Oda, also solid results coming out of the Mercedes driver. We've got 32 drivers racing around here, 2 different classes, and everyone looking to go for the gold, not only in class, but to conquer the mountain is absolutely what everyone is wanting to do. This is a circuit of pride, glory, and also goes and tests out the boundaries. Conrad Martin keeps in the fight. He's in 13th, with Jaco Nadir finding himself up into 14th position, trying to get away in the Ford Mustang. He's getting chased by the big monster machine of Keegan Bowen, trying to get a little bit closer in for the fight. Now, Keegan Bowen is also a driver you want to keep an eye out for. A champion in the Pro-Am that was promoted to Pro, now finding himself just battling out. Now, the Mustang wasn't his primary choice, but he wanted to do something a little bit different this season and picked a car that will challenge him on the run. Now, that being said, Bego Frobler and Jason Farmer find themselves out in the front, giving everything they can. But we are missing the likes of LaRue here tonight. The VXR driver in the Aston Martin, unfortunately not in the grid here tonight, will be losing a bit of time, but much to the celebration of Jason Farmer, who will be wanting to keep a clean run. And after duking it out, will be trying to see what he can do. Now, time running out, 1 minute and 26 seconds to go. Everyone having to really dial it up. And for Kieran Harris, he finds himself a little bit low and not quite on the marks for a solid run into the podium spots. He was currently 3rd in class, 7th overall, and wanting to try and find that little bit of momentum. Currently the fastest in terms of his personal time, sitting at a 2:01.0 out on his personal best. He's 0.5 up on that, and that is Henry Platt just sitting on the top 10. He's on the cusp of falling down to the mid-grid and losing out a solid run in for lap 1. So he's got to be quite careful out there. Ruben Heineke up 0.8, as well as Martin Rotenbach, who makes his way down through the corners, flat onto the gas and across the line. Martin Rotenbach finds himself up into 12th position on that last run. Going to be a stellar effort on his part. Him Whitner trying to also get a little bit of a run into the final corner. 0.4 up on his personal best at 2:01.197. And Whitner hoping to just get across the line to make it work. He gets up into 7th position and a solid run to make it work here tonight. Drivers hoping to get this going as Henry Platt jumps up into 3rd place, but Bego still holds the fastest lap time. And between the fights, Jason Farmer, fastest in Sector 1 and faster in Sector 3, is managing to keep that run. However, down on his delta at the moment and will not be holding that 1st place. Jack Darts trying to move on forward. The Rav Mac hoping to make a solid effort here tonight. He's had a season of charging to the front and unfortunate luck dragging him back through the field, and he's kicked, clawed, and bitten his way back through the field every single time. Holding on to 19th at the moment, wanting to make it work. Gianluca Pomarosa will cross the line in 28th position at the moment, unless Christian Zetzman will be looking to go and knock him down that little bit more. Chris Kraft joins up, but unfortunately only able to do a 2:05.3 he's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes in the social media side for the team, and said that it's been a little bit of a busy time for him out there to be able to just get that little bit of practice in, as they've been trying to build that social media base for the team out in the world of South Africa sim racing, and trying to get the team a little bit more out there for overseas racing as well. Bego Krobler still holds on to the top as Farmer enters the final corner. It's not going to be enough to move him up, but just 0.098 separating himself from Bego Krobler is no easy feat. Henry Platt trying to give it everything he can in the Moscow Motorsport BMW as he hunts his way through the field. It's Michael Schultz, unfortunately, down on his Delta, trying to make it work. One corner to go for the Hydraulis Engineering Porsche as he swings it through the corner, flat onto the gas, and across the line will take fourth place. Not able to dislodge Henry Platt, and will be sitting right. What do I need to do to make this work? So drivers done, dusted, and ready to go. The grid ready to head out. 32 cars here tonight. 32 drivers. 32 hopefuls looking to take a solid run up for the championship. And ultimately, it's only gonna be these 32 drivers to fight out against not only one another, but conquer the circuit of Bathurst. Folks, it's going to be an exciting one. A massive welcome if you just joined us here out on RaceFace.Pro for round 4 of season 27 and the second last season of 2026, and possibly the second last season of ACC right here in RaceFace.Pro. Proudly sponsored by one of the top leading sim racing and sim gear distributors in South Africa, EG Evolved, and our drivers looking to make it work. Some solid efforts have been put in, but now it's time to think about the race. Over 6 kilometers, 23 corners, and undulations that can go and make your race work, all land up, sending it through the field. 2 mandatory pit stops, an hour and 20 minutes of racing, and with that being said, championships on the line. I hope you're ready for this one. I hope you're excited for it. It's going to be an exciting one. And in the mortal words of Tim Curry, the late Tim Curry, don't dream it, be it. And that is echoed through all the cars. Don't dream it. Don't dream about winning. Go be it. Go be that winner. And, well, that has been the main focus here tonight. So with the cars lining up on the grid, let's head trackside as we get ready to rock, roll, and rumble here down under at Bathurst. And there is our grid lined up, ready to go. Bego Krobler holds on to that top spot with Jason Farmer chasing him down in second place. Henry Platt and Michael Schultz finds himself into the top 4, first in his class, and looking to make it work. As the timer ticks over, Henry Platt will be starting in pit lane. That is a crucial problem that's come into play here, and will find himself a little further down than what he would like to do, as he'll find himself at the back of the 32 car field. With that being said, let's take a look at who's where. Bego Krobler will be in first place with Jason Farmer in second. Michael Schultz will be promoted up to third with Sean Lerero chasing him down. Jeremy Coombe, Ruan Heineke, and Alan Patterson of PWSR finds himself out in 8th place, needing to go and final against Herman Wepner of the Extreme Sim Racing. Kieran Harris of the Midnight Racing, the championship leader in the Pro-Am, finds himself third in his class and just out of that into the top 10. Chris Heineke will hold on to 11th with likes of Johan Verveers, and joined by family member John Verveers, chasing him down in 13th position. Martin Rotenbach and Jack Darts will round out your top 15. Conrad Martin and Harry Duplessis will fight out for that 16th and 17th position. Vessel Loader with Keegan Bowen, Jaco Nadir, along with Alex Everingham, Gerard Pretorius, Chris Beermister, Rick Thomas, Anton Lummers, William Naguri, along with Hansi Myberg out in the Pandacity colours. Ludwig Zetzman coming out for a showcase run here tonight to join up with his brother after working in Liberia. He's looking to make it work here tonight as Gianluca Pomarosa looking to charge his way up through the field. Franz Werter out there in the Naguri Motorsports car. Got the Reaper on the nose. Well, it's going to be Christian Zetzman trying to chase down his brother in the Audi R8. The Ford Mustang not looking to lose out to the Audi. Chris Griff holds on to 31st, and Henry Platt will find himself starting from pit lane. But all eyes will move to the sharp end of the field as they make their way down the hill towards the likes of Forest Elbow. Massive welcome to everyone, and if you're just joining us, you have just made it to the absolute one of my personal favorite circuits, Bathurst. Home to the Bathurst 12 Hour, the Bathurst 1000 for the supercars, and well, home to what was one of the most insane single-seater class ever created back in the early 70s, 80s, 90s. It was called the Formula 5000, where they strapped a 5-litre V8 to an aluminium tub, and with open-wheel single-seater racing, that was just an absolute pinnacle of what I could say insanity. But here tonight, we're going to be bringing these GT3s around this legendary circuit for one of the most prestigious championships for South Africa's sim racing. That is the EG Evolved ACC GT3 Championship. So been a long-standing here in South African sim racing. And with that being said, this weekend with the ERA and RaceFace joined endurance race going to be happening around this very circuit, 6 hours on Saturday. Well, every driver is looking to try and get that jump up through the order, not only to win out the championship here tonight for round 4 as we reach a halfway mark, but also to carry the momentum into the weekend. Bagel Krobler and Jason Farmer looking to make it work as we jump to the helicam to see where it's all going to go. This is going to be interesting. Turn 1 is called Hell's Corner because of a tree that used to be there, and we've seen quite a few accidents over the years. Tonight, Hell's Corner is about to meet South Africa's finest as they get ready to go. Lights on, lights on, lights on. And green, 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 we are going racing. Bago Krobler off to a brilliant start. Michael Schultz under braking gets a phenomenal launch off the line as they make their way through side by side, two abreast, and a very, very clean run from each of the drivers. Ludwig Zetzman finds himself outbraked, but now Farmer under pressure as it's an immediate charge for Michael Schultz to move on forward. Alan Patterson trying to lock down that inside line to see if he can move forward as they make their way up turn 2. It's Kieran Harris who went out wide and loses out time. He's up against the wall with a bit of damage to that BMW and finds himself spiraling down the order. Each of these drivers, each of these hopefuls now start climbing the mountain. First time in anger. And we did see the likes of Kieran Harris trying to make his way back through the field. Gianluca Pomarosa now trying to find that little bit of a run as they start that climb up through the front. Bago Krobler holds on to the lead, trying to break the toe of Jason Farmer through Skyline now as they charge their way down the order. 1 and 2 now just keeping themselves going as Sean Lorero keeps the pressure on Michael Schultz. Right behind him, Jared Bakum, Ruan Heineke, Herman Wepner, and Alan Patterson follow suit down into the Forest Elbow. Hard on the brakes and bring it through the left-hander as they make their way down the Conrad Straight. Each of the drivers now playing a little bit of follow the leader as Harris loses it into the Little Dipper with lots of damage, and Henry Platt finds himself turned round at the bottom of the, heading towards the bottom of the hill. Henry Platt with cold tires and cold brakes, unfortunately down the order and not where he wanted to be. But Kieran Harris, the championship leader for the Pro-Ams, unfortunately out of the running as he needed to tow back to the pits. Grobler and Farmer now find their way, heading to complete the first lap of the race, with Farmer applying that little bit of pressure to our race leader, Bago Grobler. Sean Loureiro trying to keep the run. As third place is Michael Schultz, making a bit of a run here for the Pro-Am drivers, letting him know, listen, we're here for a fight. Alan Patterson holds on second, with Martin Rotenbach holding on to third for the Pro-Am drivers. Sean Loureiro currently third in the Pro standings, and hoping that he can keep that run a little bit further in through the field, as everyone now starting to make their way through. Pit stops are starting to happen as well. Jaco Nadir, William Nageri, Conrad Martin, Gerald Pretorius, all making their way into the pits, with Hansi Myberg as well trying to clear on through. Anton Lummers will find himself into pit lane, looking to try and clear that first pit stop and continue on with the charge, giving themselves a little bit of breathing room in this race. Chris Heineke under pressure from the likes of Johan Verveers, but he also applies pressure to Alan Patterson on the way through. Just trying to see what they can do. A clean start all around, but unfortunately one not finding it, and it spirals out. That is the likes of Jean Verveers into the wall and down the order. Jean Verveers finds himself hard into the wall, and unfortunately not having a great time as we hit the 8-minute mark. And a quick look at what happened to the 88 of Jack Darts and William Nageri. They had a bit of a coming together with one another, and unfortunately that little bit of side-on contact causing a little bit of loss of time on both their parts. However, our drivers continue on the charge, trying to see what they can do, as Sean Loureiro applies the pressure to the likes of Michael Schultz. Tim, the cameraman, still working a bit hard out there, trying to get over the jet lag as he was looking for the birds. But Sean Loureiro and Michael Schultz battle out just behind them. An ongoing battle. Ruan Heineke and Jared Raccoon continue on the fight, and just by that, Martin Rotenbach stared down the inside, see if he can move up into that top 10. The HSC Ferrari hoping to get a run on the Trail Bullets team, not able to get that done and dusted, as Chris Biermester clears past Vesselwoda, who comes into the pits rather wounded after his Mercedes bit the wall, and unfortunately needing a bit of repair work to be done. We're going to see that more and more often, but a side-by-side battle between Patterson and Whitner into turn 2, as Whitner's got the inside. He gets the drive out, and Patterson once again trying to find that little bit of a run. He's skirted down to 8th position, and we'll have to see what he can do as Chris Heineke applies that little bit of pressure. Griffin Sim Racing up against the PWSR, two long-standing teams here in South Africa, now find themselves at odds with one another through the mountain, with one of the newest teams coming to the world of South African sim racing, the Extreme Sim Racing, that's proudly sponsored by Jutec, that's got behind them and hoping that they can keep a solid run through. Whitner has had some solid races thus far in the season, but a little bit further down from where he wanted to be, and will have to fight his way through. Keegan Bowen heads down with Martin Rotenbach, who holds third for the Pro-Am just ahead of him. And Keegan Bowen trying to bring himself into that top 10 contention. He's got Jack Darts right behind him, previous Pro-Am fighter. These two have got a bit of history with one another over the course of last season, of season 26. Gianluca Palmarosa onto the pressure for Christian Zetzman, with Franz Buerta right behind, doing everything he can to move forward. Francis Buerta not going to have an easy time at the moment behind the Midnight Racing BMW of Gianluca Palmarosa, who unfortunately finds himself a little bit alone as his teammate, unfortunately not having an easy time there with that major impact early on the race. Needed a tow back, which is well over 3 minutes, plus the required repairs can take well into 6 minutes of the time as well. He's back out and going. 32 cars out on the circuit, and now 32 cars look to try and get their way into this race. It's all about settling down now as Baker Frog and Jason Farmer find themselves a little bit of a gap of 1.3 seconds, 2.2 seconds back from them. Michael Schultz with a bit of pressure from Sean Loureiro onto the back of him. Jared McCoom and Ruan Heineke keeping each other rather close company. It's Alan Patterson and Chris Heineke find themselves at odds with one another, losing track of Herman Wepner and trying to see if they can claim back a little bit of time. The grid's starting to open up, and we're running 2 by 2 now. This is where you have to start concentrating on just keeping the consistency, as Chris Heineke finds himself a little close to the wall. Lost that serious amount of time, and now has the likes of Johan Verveers closing in on him, and he's bringing Martin Rotenbach for a bit of company as well. So the battle continues on for that bottom top 10, and seeing if they can get involved into the fight as well. It's all about the consistency. This is about the rhythm of the race, and each of these drivers looking to move forward as Gianluca finds himself off at Skyline into the wall. Not what he wanted to have. Let's take a quick look at what happened. So he charged his way through McPhillamy Park, now moves into Skyline, clipped the curb, bottom out the car, caught a massive tank slapper, catches the side of the car. Fortunate enough not to put the nose in and pivot it around, but will be picking up a little bit of damage in that run as we now lose out one of our drivers. And it's Kieran Harris that moves up to 31st position. Fortunately, not what we want to see as drivers dropping out so early on into this race. But for the drive, this is quite a difficult circuit. Some may say this is one of the most technical circuits in the world to contend with. Henry Platt trying to make his climb back up through the order after his earlier spin and starting at the back of the field. Not quite working out, and you can see the battle scars on the back of that car as he dives down into pit lane after passing Chris Kreeft, and Chris retakes that 22nd position as Henry Platt looks to get his first pit stop out of the way, looking possibly for an undercut to try and move him forward. Kerry Duplessis on a solid drive looks to Alex Everingham and sees that BMW just getting a little bit more vulnerable out there, hoping that he can bring the Chromadoulis racing machine back up to the top, seeing if he can try and move his way through the order. Alex finds himself 4th in the Pro-Am class with Kerry into that 5th position, wanting to try and move forward. Sorry, Michael Schultz in 1st, Patterson in 2nd, Mon Rotenbach in 3rd, with Jack Darts in 4th, Alex in 5th, and Kerry in 6th position. Going in, trying to find that little bit of time out there to really move on forward. These drivers trying to get a little bit more grip out onto the circuit as Sean Loureiro, who fought it out for the SRSA Championship, this previous championship of the SRSA, now trying to chase down Michael Schultz and just not able to get the run on the Porsche. BMW driver just keeping that toe, saving a bit of fuel, seeing where he can make up a bit of time, seeing his teammate Jason Farmer further up the field. It's going to be a solid run for each of these drivers to make it work. And you can see Sean Loureiro fighting with that little bit of grip to try and keep himself going. This is a circuit that has 2 ways of choosing what you want to do and the way you set up your car. You can either set up the car for the tight and technical circuit of the mountain, or you can go and set up for the long straightaway down the Conrad Straight to maximize that top end pace. This is always a trade-off, because if you do make your car set up for the mountain, you find that you're losing precious seconds down the straightaway. But if you go the other way around, you're going to lose time in the mountain and make up precious seconds down that straightaway. So Ruan Hepner finds himself behind Ruan Heineke, pushing a little bit as hard as possible as the 3 fight out for 5th, 6th and 7th position at the moment. Hepner finds himself just focusing on his driver right underneath that spoiler of Ruan Heineke, just getting right into that rear diffuser, seeing if he can try and force a mistake. But Jared Raccoon getting a little bit of breathing room here as Heineke a little slow up the hill, and that is going to cause a little bit of a bottleneck as they make their way to the top, and now just trying to keep it going. Heineke, a little bit of a confidence lift just to keep himself sorted, backed up Herman Wepner, and now goes on the attack down the hill as Jared Raccoon under pressure. The Team Wolf car needing to see what they can move to do, but also take a look, Alan Patterson starting to close up that gap, and he's bringing Chris Heineke in for a bit of company as well. It's going to be a big run for the championship, as each of the drivers looking to try and make it work here tonight. This is going to be an absolute tough time and who is going to have a solid run. Now, with that being said, this is our Pro and Pro-Am drivers who are out on the circuit, really putting in a solid bit of effort here tonight. And, well, it's going to be a proper run for each of these drivers to make it work here tonight, as they're at the halfway mark of the championship. Unfortunately, everyone finding themselves a little bit in for a fight here, as Jack Darts just losing a little bit of time down into 13th position, and just keeping behind Keegan Bone and John Verveers ahead of him. Now, Jan Verveers, they're trying to see if they can just make it work here tonight to move up through the order, and ultimately who can stay in for the championship. Chris Reff losing a little bit of drive at the moment, as Jochen Beer finds himself a little bit further down than where he wanted to be. Remember, they did an early pit stop hoping for the undercut to work, as Gerald Pretorius looks to attack Conrad Martin, who leads out those who have completed their first pit stop here tonight, and trying to see if they can just keep that solid run. Kieran Harris, unfortunately, will have to still do 2 pit stops, as he finds himself at the bottom of the order. Remember, he towed back to pits, and that doesn't count as a pit stop. You physically need to drive in, park on your marks, get 1 litre of fuel put into the car, and you'll be able to continue. Oh, Gianluca finds himself off at turn 2, and that just promoted Ludwig Sitzman up. You can see the Midnight Racing starting to look a little bit broken out there. It's not quite what he wanted to have, and that BMW most certainly going to be feeling it, as the driver will have to do everything he can to try and make it work. As we jump on the front splitter, take a look at the pace they need to carry through, and also get a sense of how close they actually need to run to the walls. Now, Gianluca Pomarosa trying to keep a solid run after his teammate bit the wall early on in the race and needed to get a tow back. This is where the mistake happened. Heading down towards the dipper, as the car lightens up underneath the suspension, you have to keep yourself just gentle on your braking. A little too hard on the brakes, too hard on the throttle, will find yourself right round in a world of trouble. And Ludwig Sitzman, after a bit of time away from the sim rig, and I have to say a good chunk of time away from the sim rig, is back into solid form, trying to catch up to Christian Zetzman, who's been in through the whole season. Ludwig has been a little bit out of the racing scene here in sim racing for South Africa for some time due to work, but is right back onto the horse and moving his way forward in a car that, well, most people would rather stay away from. The Audi R8 is not an easy beast to handle around the circuit of Bathurst, and even just racing in general. It's one of those cars that can either work for you or it lands up falling down, as Gianluca pulls into the pits to get himself sorted out. We do see a couple of drivers fighting a bit hard. Kerry Duplessis getting a little unsteady out of turn 2 as he puts pressure on Alex Everingham, trying to see if he can move up through the order. It's a wide line with a very tight apex for Kerry Duplessis, just absolutely trying to find any sort of time out on the circuit with Alex in that BMW keeping consistent. Kerry Duplessis losing the rear a little bit there. We'll have to go a little bit up on the traction control just to stabilize that rear a little bit more underneath him, but it will be costing him precious time out on the track. Now, it's 22 minutes past 7 here in the world of sim racing, especially out in Bathurst. Means the lights of these cars will start to become brighter and brighter as the day goes on and as we head into the evening, but also that sunset gets smack bang into the driver's eyes, and that will be through the Collinrod Straight and also the climb up the mountain, making things a little bit more interesting for the drivers. As we do see Alan Patterson applying pressure to Herman Wetner, just couldn't quite get that pass done. It was 0.2 of a second as he tries to give everything he can. Herman Wetner pulls into the pits. He's going for an undercut here to get rid of that first pit stop. Alan gets a clear run and sees the fight of Ruan Heineke and Jared Kuma ahead of him as he tries to apply that little bit of pressure. A big look down the inside for Heineke. Couldn't quite get Jared shifted off that apex. Now we'll just follow him through down the long straightaway, keeping nose to tail, keeping in that slipstream to push his way forward, and will then look to start to move over to the side, hoping to pick up a side draft and launch his way onto the attack. But Jared holds that inside line, Keeps it very, very tight. A little bit of loss of drive on the exit of turn 2. Forcing Ruben Heineke to also come off the gas. And now Alan Patterson finds himself a little bit closer as both drivers compromise their lines. Jared holding a solid and firm run at the moment. Just losing the rear end a little bit there and having to come slightly off the throttle as they fight their way on up towards the top. You can see the yellow of the PWSR slowly creeping up, but Ruben Heineke giving a little bit of room at the top of the hill just to start focusing on the entrance and exits on the way down. You don't want to be too close, taking that pressure off the nose, especially into these corners. You want to have as much of the aerodynamics helping you out through the circuit as you climb down the hill to help load that suspension up as much as you can. But Ruben Heineke a little too gentle on the way through. You could see immediately Alan Patterson started to close up that gap, getting a little bit more aggressive out there, trying to see if he can keep a solid run. Alan finds himself second in the class with Martin Rotenbach holding on to third. He's chasing down the two pros ahead of him, hoping to see if he can close up the gap to Michael Schultz, who is currently running in that first place of the Pro-Am field. No change at the front for Beggar Frobler, Jason Foreman and Sean Loureiro as they keep themselves going. Michael Schultz just still keeping a little bit of pressure on to Sean Loureiro, but not enough to compromise his race as Patterson pulls into the pits. This is an interesting strategy coming into play, and we're starting to see more and more of that top 10 now trying out something a little different to see if they can move themselves up through the order and get that little bit of clear air. Herman Whitner and Chris Heineke find themselves in 16th and 17th position. They did an early pit stop and now just trying to see if they could cycle their way through up the order with keeping a little bit of clear air between them. Jaco Nadir and Hansi Meiberg side by side as Hansi gave that little bit of room to Jaco Nadir. He knows he's not in for the fight for the Pro-Am field. Instead, is going to give Jaco that little bit of breathing room and carry on marching forward. A solid run from both competitors, and for Hansi Meiberg not wanting to go and get into a fight unnecessarily as Alex Everingham runs into a problem for turn 2 and finds himself hard into the wall. That is some major damage to Alex's car as we jump towards it. This is Thierry Duplessis right behind him. Alex outbrakes himself, clips the curb, and did the rear step out? Yes, it did. And there's the impact that cost him time. Nearly going and running into a problem as it was late on the brakes for Chris Biermeister. Swings around to go and see Rick Thomas come past him, nearly having his teammates going and climbing into him. But it's a slow drive for Alex now with that damage as he gently brings himself down the hill. He will be under pressure as Herman Whitner will be calling for him to just mind out of the way a little bit as Chris Heineke and Alan Patterson now join into the fray, looking to see if they can get into this. Chris Heineke and Whitner have completed their first stop, with the likes of Alan Patterson also completing his stop. Whitner utilizing that toe, pulling himself along. We'll see Alex has got a bit of a problem. Dive to the inside through the kink, forcing Alex on the outside, hoping for it to run. As Chris Heineke going to put his nose forward, he gets clear pass. And immediately, late on the brakes, as Alex out brakes the drivers, all causes a bit of a problem for Heineke and bottles up Alan Patterson in the mix. Alan getting blocked up as we do see Alex pulling into the pits. Alan, unfortunately, could have nowhere to go. Heineke loses our crucial time to Herman Whitner. And for Alex Everingham, he was just trying to line himself up for the pits. As Johan Verveers battles against Keegan Bowen with Jack Darts applying that little bit of pressure, trying to see if they can move on forward. Jack losing a little bit of drive out of 3. Keegan Bowen allowing that little bit of breathing room to Johan ahead of him. And we're trying to ultimately close up the gap and see where he can stay in for the fight. Alex will be getting a bit of work done to his car after that hard impact and looking to try and cycle out. But Keegan Bowen holds on to 9th position. Jack Darts in top 10 with the likes of Johan Verveers finding himself up into that 8th place. Under pressure, trying to see what he can do to make it work as both cars bottom out, running a bit low on the suspension there. We saw the sparks coming out from underneath them as they went through the dipper. Now just trying to get back onto the throttle here through the Forest Elbow, down the Conrod Straight as we enter the last 58 minutes of this race. It's been an absolutely mental one, and for every driver so far flirting with death on the mountain. Hard braking for Ryan Heineke, a little bit of a nudge between himself and Jared Raccoon, and unfortunately it's Heineke going and getting the benefit of that one. Jared unfortunately getting a light nudge onto the rear, will not be too impressed, hoping to close up the gap. Keegan Bowen trying to see if he can clear on pass as Jan Verveers guards that middle line. Hard braking into the final corner. Keegan unable to get onto the loud pedal fast enough. And now Jack Darts trying to bait a move down the inside towards Hell's Corner. Turn 1. Hard on the brakes, seeing if he can make that pass to come in. Fortunately, not working for him at the moment. Nose to tail as these drivers push a little bit harder as we jump on board for the 720S GT3 McLaren of Jack Darts, trying to make up a bit of time. We heard that little bit of a lift off the throttle to provide a bit of room, and just trying to see if he can prioritize corner entry to exit to get ahead of Keegan Bowen. He doesn't want to be too close, that there's not enough room to make a pass, as we do see Jan Verveers, critical mistake, finds himself into the wall, losing our time. Michael Schultz, unfortunately, also running into a few problems, put a wheel wrong at the top of the hill, losing out a bit of time. Sean Lorera moves up to third, and Schultz loses out that little bit of momentum. Let's quickly take a look. It was coming up the hill, put a wheel wrong out of turn 3 and 4. Now just trying to see if he can try and close up that gap. Immediately the Porsche starting to look a little bit unreasonable with him, and also some internet connectivity issues going and costing him on the run as well. So that's going to be a concerning factor for the driver as he tries to make his way through, as we do see a replay. Mon Rotenbach chasing down Jared Raccoon as 6th and 7th continue on their battle between one another. Alan Patterson now trying to see if he can put the pressure on Christian Zetzman as Heineke got clear of Christian Zetzman. It's time for Alan Patterson to see if he can do so. This is a fight for class position at the moment, and Alan trying to see if he can move up through the order, but see if he can also try and close right back up to Chris Heineke, who is on that charge back through the field after getting caught up behind Alex Everingham. He had that damage to the car, and unfortunately became a cork in the bottle for both Alan Patterson and Chris Heineke. Big look down the inside, couldn't make it work. Alan backs off, just bides his time. Christian Zetzman soaking up that pressure, just focusing on his lines, not looking to make any big mistakes here, just continues to hold his line. Ludwig Zetzman loses out to Jaco Nadir, the Audi R8, trying to hold on to that top 20 at the moment. Alan Patterson not able to clear on pass. One of our close battles out on circuit for the Pro-Am division. Martin Rotenbach and Jared Raccoon find themselves out at odds into 6th and 7th. It's not a fight for class position, which means it's going to be just about following each other through and not looking to put a foot wrong at the moment. As Schultz, Rotenbach, Jack Darts find themselves into the top 3 of their class. Kerry Duplessis in 4th, with Chris Biermester holding on to that top 5. For the pros, it's Beggar Krobler, Jason Farmer, Sean Herrera, Ryan Heineke, and Jared Raccoon, and hold on to the top 5 between them. These drivers now starting to settle down the pace and starting to feel the pressure. They will be starting to think, right, what's the game plan here? How are we going to move up through the order? Our leaders will be thinking, right, what's the game plan for ourselves here? Herman Wepner's up to 14th position. Rick Thomas is going to be the next car he needs to clear past. And also, for Beggar Krobler, Jason Farmer, Sean Herrera, when are they going to come into the box to complete their first pit stop? We're going to see roughly, and I'm taking a bit of a tinfoil hat moment here, putting on the head, halfway mark, about 45 minutes left in this race. We'll see the first number of pit stops coming in as Jason Farmer sets the fastest lap time of the race, a 2:07 on that last one. A solid charge through, but now needing to keep going. Scoring a fastest lap means an extra point for the championship, and it will be thinking, right, I need to maintain that now, as it was just slightly quicker than Beggar Krobler's time, who did put a wheel off circuit and He did set the faster lap time of a 2-minute point 6 at his personal best, but due to him putting a wheel off circuit, means that it will not actually count, as Jared Kuhn loses out the run to Martin Rotenbach. He's going to try and push the Ferrari into a mistake. He looks around the outside, late on the anchors, side by side. Team Wolf McLaren gets caught into the marbles, having to just catch that rear end. And now that little crucial to try and get past Martin Rotenbach. Sees Keegan Bowen and John Verfiers starting to close up the gap with Jack Darts in for the fray as well. So Martin has got a little bit clear air as Jared, Keegan and Johan find themselves at odds with one another. Jack Dart has 3 drivers in pro, all fighting for overall track position and class position ahead of him. And Jack Dart, who sits behind all 3, is a little bit far from Martin Rotenbach, who's up through the order. Christian Zetzman now into the pits, getting himself sorted, as we do see Jack Darts, unfortunately, going a little bit on down the hill, and finds himself just picking up a track limit. Now, that is something we haven't touched on as yet, and that has been a crucial play in for the championship as well. So we've seen it go and take a few points away, namely Henry Platt finding himself with a drive-through penalty after track limits exceeded at Hungaroring, and dropping him from 3rd place to 6th. A number of drivers have had that very same run, unfortunately having the track limits coming into play and take them out. You're allowed 3 warnings before you get your first drive-through penalty. That solid spoon over the knuckles, and every time you get a track limit after that, it's going to be another drive-through, as Rick Thomas allows a clear pass for Herman Whitmer. No attack there, as Rick Thomas did mind out of the way, providing a bit of room. And I'm sure there was a bit of team communication from Herman's side saying, listen, Rick, we're in 2 different races here. We're in the same class. Let me pull you on through. Let's try and make this work. Rick going and coming off the gas, allowing Herman to go through. And now we'll try and pull him further up the field. And they have also got different strategies out on circuit. This is the thing about having a big team in the field and just having a teammate in general, looking at your strategies, comparing the different ideas and what's going to work, what's not going to work, especially after that first pit stop. Where does it start filtering the drivers out as we head to the 15-minute and 28-minute mark? Jack Dart now trying to find his way through the ravenous McLaren of Jack Dart, trying to see if he can catch up to Jan Verfiers of the Trail Bullet team. Oh, big mistake and near impact to the wall. He spins out on the way through, just keeps it out of the wall, hoping to reverse the car, get it turned around, but it's a 300-point turn as he's stuck in the middle of the circuit trying to get that car sorted out, and drivers seeing a very, very slow McLaren, and it's going to be Jack Darts deciding he's going to take us straight on to not get too much in the way. Chris Heineke putting a bit of pressure onto Rick Thomas now. Remember, Chris Heineke is on the same strategy as Herman Whitner and seeing if he can try and clear through, and I don't think Rick Thomas is going to make this any easier. They're fighting out for overall track position, meaning it's an out-and-out brawl between them, but you're also caught into the teammate game as well. And Chris Heineke knows this all too well, as Griffin Sim Racing are not afraid to utilize a solid drive to just go and apply a little bit of pressure to the competition. Side by side they go. Rick Thomas stuck to the outside, going to try and outbrake. Couldn't quite get it done, and Chris Heineke just managing to put his nose forward, gets that pass done, and catches right back into the fight. Sees Jack Darts, and 1.5 seconds ahead of him, Herman Whitner going and finding a little bit more room out ahead of the circuit of Jack Darts, and will be just getting that report of, I tried holding him back a little bit, but Heineke got the benefit of the run. Henry Platt finds himself in 23rd position, trying to get past Anton Lummers. He launches down the inside. Anton gives him that little bit of room. A courtesy of, right, buddy, you're going to put your nose forward, and you are slightly quicker than me. Fine, I'm going to let you go, as we're going to plan out our strategies from there. So, some solid running and some smart driving from our competitors. Hansi Myberg trying to get a solid run at the moment. Conrad Martin who's completed his first pit stop, now trying to close up to the Pandacity driver and see if he can make it work. Hansi Myberg, a long stalwart here in RaceFace.Pro as an admin, as a steward, and now finds himself out as a driver for the Pandacity team, and has been a driver for the Try Hard Racing, which was also a long-standing team here in the world of RaceFace.Pro, and find themselves now doing something a little different out in the world of iRacing as well. So Hansi Myberg joining up with the Pandacity team with Tiernus Buerta and Werner Skuman, who fight out around the circuit, moving themselves up and down through the order in the world of sim racing here in South Africa. Jaco Nadir trying to get a little bit closer to the likes of Francois Buerta, the KSR driver, also a team that has been around long time. The KSR, part of Bertus Hugo staple for a long time. Beyond Fierce, Trail Bullets leads out to Kerry Duplessis as Kerry gets a drive up into 9th position. Kerry finds himself 3rd in class, and with Fafiers not in the same class, a pro driver, he's going and opting rather give that little bit of room, allow for the pass to happen, and focus on the exits, focus on the corners. Whitner up to 12th. He's completed his first pit stop, and our top 11 yet to do their first pit stop. Chris Heineke finds himself behind Jack Darts, trying to see if he can clear on through. They both 2.8 seconds, nearly 3 seconds behind Herman Whitner. He's found himself up the order. Rick Thomas holding back Heineke just a little bit for that little bit of time has ultimately helped the run, as Alan Patterson will have to be clearing through Rick Thomas. Oh, Jack Darts opens up the corner a little bit wide there. Outbraked himself, and Chris Heineke most certainly going to be saying thank you very much on that one, as Willie Nagiri pulls into the pits. Now this is an interesting one, as Willie will be the very first driver to complete his pit stops at the 45-minute mark. Kieran Harris has yet to pit after his major incident that forced the tow back. He's in 31st position, cycling for points at the moment. It's damage limitations coming into play, which, gotta say, hat off to the driver. Despite having that major impact, he knows he needs to make it work. Hansi Myberg, oh, clatter, bang, hard into the wall, and constantly finds himself dragging his way through. What on earth happened to Hansi Myberg? Let's quickly take a look as he makes his way up through McPhillamy Park, catches a wall, loses time. There's the first impact, absolutely shatters the car, breaks the suspension, and you can see no steering whatsoever as he's now trying to just bring that car to the pit lane. Hansi will spiral down the order, not quite what he wanted to have, but that 1 foot wrong, unfortunately, finds himself with the Pandacity finding themselves a little bit in repair work, and, well, that's one more Panda that's on to the list of under threat from the rest of the drivers. Also finding himself a little bit down. Kerry Duplessis and Chris Beamston now pull into the pits, as we do see Jack Darts. Big mistake into the dirt through Hell's Corner. That's going to allow Rick Thomas to come on by. Side by side they go, and bringing Alan Patterson in for the attack as well. Alan is in the same class. He sees Jack Darts ahead of him. He knows what he needs to do, as Alan will be looking to try and clear his way through. Jaco Nadir into the pits as well, completing all his pit stops. This has now turned into a race of nutrition for each of these drivers, as Patterson can't find a way past Rick Thomas, as Jack Darts gave him that little bit of room. Alan now needing to just see what he can do, and Rick Thomas providing a bit of support for his team to try and keep a solid run. Alan finds himself in a crucial spot of 3rd place. He's got Jack Darts in 4th place behind him. For the Pro-Am drivers, Rick Thomas a little further down from his class positions, unfortunately, but is in a race nonetheless and can still keep on the fight. Christian Zetterman trying to see if he can move forward against Chris Krev, as two drivers battle on. Ludwig managing to find himself up into 16th position ahead of his brother. So all the way out from Liberia, seems like it's done him some good out there to just get a little bit of breathing room to move on forward. But a big call coming in. Sean Loureiro, first of our top 5 to pull into the pits. And this is going to be a big call for the drivers. Does he get out ahead of Herman Whitner, who finds himself in 10th position? The likes of Johan Verveers into the pits, trying to get himself sorted. Herman Whitner giving it everything he can. Absolutely finds himself up into 8th position. Loureiro finds himself a little bit further down than where he would like to be. Chris Heineke will be going and cycling on through. Alan Patterson will gain a position. So Sean Loureiro going and being the measuring stick for the top 5, unfortunately finds himself down in 12th position, getting a lot of work done to that car. Just getting a new set of tires put on, I would presume, to be able to come out fighting, but it's going to be ice cold out there, and it has to generate a little bit of heat. Rick Thomas onto the back of Alan Patterson now, as they fight out for that 10th spot on the way through. And Alan for the PWSR, hoping to keep a solid run, holding on to the podium here. This is going to be a big run. He's gone and supported his son in the world of sim racing. Kieran Patterson, one of the finest of sim racers, previous champion here at RaceFace.Pro, finds himself out in the UK doing a little bit of cricket, going and representing the flag. Alan Patterson getting cheered on by his, well, I would say pit boss out in the virtual pits, going and giving him that little bit of inspiration and a little bit of discussions. Jack Dart now finds himself losing our position to Chris Griff. He's trying to get that little bit of run up through the order, as Christian Zetzman will have a little bit of top end in that Ford Mustang, gains a bit of time, looks to the right hand side, and Jack Dart's not going to fight him out too much there in the straight, but it's going to be late on the anchors to make it work into turn 2. Can he find that little bit of grip? Yes, he does. Beautiful exit to get ahead of Christian Zetzman. Vessel Loader has completed all his pit stops, and it will be finding himself a little bit further down in 26th position. A solid run for Jaco Nadia, who finds himself in 24th, the very first driver to complete all his pit stops, along with Willie Nagiri. Sorry, it was Willie that actually completed all these pit stops. Jaco Nadia was second. Vessel Loader landed up third, but they will be the measuring stickers. Now it's starting to come in. Keegan Bowen, Herman Whitner, Michael Schultz find themselves into the pits, as Chris Heineke going that little bit longer, as Hansi Myberg exits the pit lane with the car fixed after meeting the wall and being up against the guard barriers of the Bathurst circuit itself. Alan Patterson, who took that crucial pit stop in the early stages of the race from lap 1, finds himself up into 7th position and now second in class. However, it is going to be said that the drivers are having to think a little bit outside the box here, because Chris Heineke is going to be that mark you want to keep an eye out for. Remember, he was also an early pit stop in this race. Finds himself into 6th position, charging his way through in clear air. Herman Whitner will complete all his pit stops and exits out onto the circuit in 18th position. Francis Buerta finds himself in 20th position and will start to come down the order. So already some interesting calls coming into play. Jason Farmer pulls into the pits following Bago Krobler. A big call from both those drivers to just get their pit stop done and dusted in the 39-minute mark. And it's immediately Ruben Heineke coming in with a retaliatory move to see if he can try and make it happen. Martin Rotenbach dives down into pit lane, as well as Jared McCoon decides he's going to go longer in this race. This is an interesting call for the young man, as he's now going to usurp the entirety of the field and looking to try and move on forward. A solid run for Jared McCoon. Was this the right call to go longer in the race and see if he can try and hold on to the lead? So a solid run for each of the drivers, who will absolutely go and fight their way through. Now, Farmer, Bago Frobler into the pits. Ruben Heineke, Martin Rotenbach, Chris Heineke, and Rick Thomas now dive into the pits. and hoping for a solid run for each of our drivers to move forward. And, well, with that being said, a bit of a question to everyone out there. Who do you think will win out round 4 here at Bathurst? And, well, you can engage out in the virtual grandstands. Who will win round 4? Well, we leave it up to you to go and find out as we keep track of this in real time. Alan Patterson finds himself leading out his class with Martin Rodenbach down into 6th position and starting to fall down quite a bit out there. Michael Schultz is holding on to 2nd in class. Ludwig Zitzmann now moves up as Chris Heineke gets a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in pit lane. Ludwig Zitzmann, after a bit of time out of the seat for the first time in 2026, finds himself now in for podium running for the team and for himself. This is going to be a little bit of pressure as Henry Platt wants to try and march his way through. Clears pass on the inside. Henry Platt making up time. Remember, this is a driver that started stone cold last in the pits, spun out and got himself going. He finds himself now into 8th position, holding on to that top 10 and still trying to keep up the fight. Jared McComb into the pits as Bago Krobler going to say thank you very much and clear past his teammate, retaking that lead of the race. Alan Patterson will be pulling into the pits. Now, Patterson making an interesting call here to see if he can move on forward. And ultimately, is this going to be the right move for Patterson to hold on to that top spot for the Pro-Am, as Michael Schultz is going to keep his foot in it? He's going to clear on through and go a little bit longer into the race. Martin Rotenbach deciding he's going to go on a little bit longer as Ludwig Zitzmann dives into pit lane to get himself sorted out. Conrad Martin going to keep going as well. So for the Pro-Am drivers, they do see Alan Patterson and Ludwig pull into the pits, and they go and decide they're going to keep that momentum going as Conrad Martin getting out onto the circuit will join side by side, getting ahead of Jared McComb, who held the lead for a short, brief time. Now he comes out in 8th position and right behind Conrad Martin for a little bit of tow to help him out. Chris Heineke pulls into the pits. He's going to be serving his stop-go 30-second, unfortunately for speeding in pit lane and just coming off the baton a little bit too early, costing him a bit of time out there. Henry Platt, Chris Heineke pulling into the pits, get themselves done and dusted with their pit stops, hoping that's going to be a crucial run through it all and seeing whether it's going to be a solid choice. Herman Whitner finds himself up into 12th position as now he leads out those that have completed all their pit stops, with likes of Johan Verveers further up the road in 11th position. Now, our top 11 still yet to pit. Herman has completed all his pit stops and is putting the gamble on here to see whether he can keep moving forward. Kerry Duplessis and Keegan Bowen trying to chase each other down, up and down through the hill, with Jared McComb and Conrad Martin keeping each other company. Farmer holds on to the fastest lap of the race. Bago Krobler holds on to the lead. Sean Herrera holds on to 3rd. Michael Schultz, Martin Rotenbach and Conrad Martin find themselves in the top 3 of the Pro-Am field, with Kerry Duplessis trying to make up some time in 4th position. And that being said, Alan Patterson finds himself first of the Pro-Ams that have completed all their pit stops. Herman Whitner finds himself first of the Pros that have completed all their pit stops. So, interesting calls being made. 32 cars started, 31 cars remain. Conrad Martin dives into the pits, hoping that he can get the undercut to work on Martin Rotenbach and Michael Schultz, but also go and force a pass to happen. And as Alan Patterson makes his way down the Conrad Straight, in through the kink, does see the likes of, that would be the Ford Mustang of Jaco Nadir. Is it Jaco? No, that would be the purple Mustang of Gerard Pretorius, who is in 30th position, trying to make his way through the 13th of Herman Whitner, who's now getting a little bit of time, and Herman climbing up into 11th position. Now Gerard Pretorius will be radioing that in to further up. It's not actually for Gerard Pretorius. He finds himself trying to fight his way through. So apologies on getting it. It's Chris Biermeister who's at 12th position, car ahead of Gerard Pretorius. Gerard in 30th position, unfortunately not in an easy time out there. Chris just keeping himself going out on circuit. Christian Zetzman finds himself trying to get away from Hansi Myburg. Hansi in 29th position, Christian Zetzman in 26th as they continue on their race. These drivers now starting to feel the pressure of what's happening out here as we start seeing the time tick on over. Drivers starting to feel a bit tired as Jan Fears catches a wall on the way down through the dipper. And now Jan, unfortunately, with a bit of damage to his car, that's going to cause the pit stop to be a little bit longer. And everyone trying to figure out what's going to be the game plan here to move on forward. Not an easy time. And these drivers now starting to feel that little bit of pressure of what is going to happen out on circuit. Thierry Duplessis for the Cromdulis Racing finds himself right behind Keegan Bowen, third in his class. Martin Rotenbach and Michael Schultz holding on to the top two as Vessel Woda, his teammate, finds a bit of impact at the top of the hill. And unfortunately, the Mercedes of the Cromdulis Racing towed back to pits with massive damage. And it looks like they have pulled that car in saying it's done. It's over. And we're out of the race. Kerry finds himself the last of the Cromdulis Racing out on circuit after his teammate losing it at the top of the hill and getting the Mercedes nose crushed up against the wall. Alex Everingham, who also had a bit of a problem early on in the race, finds himself in 19th position, putting a bit of pressure on his teammate. This is a fight out full class position, and with the two teammates trying to see what they can do. Oh, Chris Griff, late call to get into the pits, deciding to rather get that pit stop done and dusted. Alex will say thank you very much on that one. Chris still has got 2 pit stops that he needs to clear through, so he's just trying to get a little bit of damage limitation out there. Started in 31st position after Henry Platt started in 32nd. He's managing to hold on the line and will be taking that late gamble. Our top 9 yet to do their final pit stop. Herman Whitner holds on to 10th, 9.8 seconds behind this battle of Harry Duplessis and Keegan Bowen, who are fighting out for 8th and 9th position. 2 different classes, however, it isn't one to go and hold on for nothing, as Gianluca Pomarosa finds himself hard against the wall on the way down. He's minded out of the way for the rest of the drivers. He does give a little bit of room, kicks the rear out, and despite that little bit of damage, what a bit extra onto the rear, he does come back out in front of the big McLaren. And unfortunately, just not having an easy time out there. He's got no steering whatsoever and will be just trying to get himself back towards pit lane to get himself sorted out. Kieran Harris going and finding his teammate also biting the wall. Midnight Racing, unfortunately, finding themselves in a little bit of a compromising run, and both of their cars taking a bit of an impact here tonight. Keegan Bowen trying to keep ahead of Harry Duplessis as the two battle on and not giving each other any easier of a run as we jump on board to the rear wing of Keegan Bowen. The Ravenous Motorsports Mustang trying to keep ahead of the Cromdulis Ferrari, who holds on for that 3rd place at the moment, trying to see if it's going to work out for him. Late on the anchors, trying to see if he can move on forward. However, it is going to be a solid run for Kerry Duplessis. He doesn't have to fight out against Keegan Bowen, but rather just try and see what he can do to keep the drive. Oh, a little bit of catch of the wall, trying to see if he can put his nose forward. Unfortunately, caught that curb, caught the wall, and you can see the headlights starting to bounce off the tarmac. As it's getting a little bit darker out there, these drivers starting to feel that little bit of pressure. Alex Everingham and Rick Thomas find themselves into the pits to get their pit stops done and dusted, and will be trying to see if it's going to work out in their favor. Now, that being said, leader of the Pro-Am in terms of pit stops done, Alan Patterson, trying to see where Chris Biermeister is going to pull into the pits. He's 2.1 seconds behind him and will be looking for an optimum run up through the order as Alan wanting to try and find himself out on the podium here tonight. Michael Schultz, Martin Rotenbach, Kerry Duplessis find themselves the top 3 of their class. Beggar Grobler with Jason Farmer hunting him down in 2nd place, and Sean Lerero keeping it consistent, holds on for 3rd place at this stage of the game. He's just trying to tick on by, tick those laps away, not wanting to get into too many fights and arguments out there. Knows a podium is a solid result for the Griffin Sim Racing team, not only just for the driver championship, but also to think about the team championship in play as well. So the Griffin Sim Racing wanting to make it work here tonight, not wanting to lose our bit of time, as we do see Gerald Pretorius pulling into the pits and getting himself sorted out. Alan Patterson now a little bit closer to Chris Beermister and seeing if he could take the fight to the sharp end of the field. Now, Beermister is yet to pull into the pits, bear that in mind, and will have a little bit of time to switch out to a new set of tires. It will compromise him in that he can't have an easy time firing those tires back up, but what he can do is provide a little bit of pain to Alan Patterson and see if he can bring the rest of the field a little bit closer and forcing the AM field to be the Pro-Am field a little bit closer towards the end. Alan Patterson will not want to have that happen, as Chris Beermister looking to move forward. This month in August marks his 2 years in sim racing, starting out as a driver that, well, caused quite a bit of havoc out on circuit. He's developed his skills to move on forward, now finds himself in a valuable position, and also has got a couple of wins underneath his belt. Alan Patterson, not only a team manager for PWSL, one of the oldest standing teams here in the world of South African sim racing, and also been quite a dominating force, having likes of Darren Miller joining in, and various other drivers being part of it, to PWSR getting put for Kieran Patterson, Alan to join up with one another. They now find themselves going into the fight as Patterson dives down the inside of Chris Beermister, side by side. Both Ferraris go. It's red and yellow to move on forward, and Alan gets that pass done as Ren Heineke pulls into the pits, trying to get his final pit stop out of the way. Alan up into 11th, and now trying to see what he can do. A podium here will be a solid result for him. Trying to see what he can do. Herman Wetner now ticks off yet another mark onto this grid. He moves up into 9th position. So, with Herman up to 9th, 10 seconds behind Kerry Duplessis. He's got the pressure on Keegan Bowen. Trying to see if he can move on forward. Ren Heineke will have to put the chase down to Herman Wetner. 1.6 seconds separate them as they both completed their pit stops. Heineke and Wetner fighting out full class position in the pro field, trying to see if they can make up that little bit of time to see possibly, just maybe, that capture of a podium here at Bathurst to beat out Bago Frobler, Jason Farmer and Sean Lerero as they get to the 24-minute mark. Means that they're not going to have an easy time to put on a new set of tyres if necessary. However, looking at all the pit stops at the moment, every single driver has gone through the pits and put a new set of boots on and will be racing to the end. However, a bit of information here. While the rest of the drivers finding themselves at 285, 286, 287, 288 kilometers an hour, Henry Platt out in the BMW finds himself the fastest through the speed trap, 290 kilometers an hour, 2 seconds, 2 kilometers faster than the rest of the field, and up 17 positions since he started this race. Remember, he qualified into the top 5, started from pit lane, landed up with a spin, and now finds himself in for the fight. Keegan Bowen up 11 positions from where he started. Chris Beermister up 10 as he makes his way through. Francois Buerta finds himself up 11 positions on the run through. Now, that being said, the last of the runners that have had a terrible time out there, and I say that they're the last of the runners, but they're the had the most drops in position, but still out on the circuit, seeing it through to the end, which honestly, with 32 starters, 30 remaining, Kieran Harris, leader of the Pro-Am in the championship, had that monster impact, and you gotta take hats off to the driver. Still circulating. He's in 29th position, 20 positions down from where he started. He was into that top 5, but now finds himself just circulating full points, and you gotta take your hats off to the driver. He saw the green, he wants to see the checkered. It's damage limitation for the championship, and ultimately they're putting in a hard work there. Christian Zetzman in 21st. He's got likes of Hansi Myberg trying to see if he can move on forward, and Hansi 27th in position, trying to make it work as Johan Verveers bit the wall down the Conrad straight. Now just trying to circulate. Rick Thomas clears through. Christian Zetzman will be the next of the drivers to come on by, as we do see Michael Schultz clearing through and continuing on that drive. Ryan Heineke and Whitmer now find themselves at odds, as it's 0.9 of a second when they came through. Terry Duplessis and Keegan Bowen now know they're under pressure as they run 8th and 7th respectively. Our top 8 yet to do that final run through. This is going to be a solid run for the competitors, and a bit of information coming in. Antonio Gamble saying it's going to be Bago Krobler, Jason and Sean going to be the round 4 winners. And that is an interesting one, because Bago is 4.6 seconds ahead of Jason Farmer. But it comes down to fueling. If I'm taking a look at that last lap, Bago Krobler did put in the fastest lap time of the race of a 2:04 as he came across the line. His last lap was a 2:01.2. Jason Farmer, 2:01.1. Farmer was a little bit quicker. And Sean Herrera, a 2:01.6. He's 12 seconds back in this race. But Farmer does theoretically have a chance to catch up to Bago Krobler once those tyres start falling off a cliff. Chris Biermeister and Jack Dart still have to do their pit stops. Unfortunately, will find themselves down and out of the running. Kerry Duplessis putting the pressure on Keegan Bowen. He knows that this is turning into a bit of a problem out there, as Christian Zetzman crashes up at the top of the hill. Willie Nageri, unfortunately, gets himself wrong. He keeps it slightly out of the wall, nearly T-boning the 101 car, and not quite having it there. And Alan Patterson loses out a spin as well into the hairpin. Alan Patterson going on a solid charge, has the rear step out, monster slide, little catch against the wall. He was able to get going, but loses out that little bit of time, and that's going to provide just enough room for Harry Duplessis to keep on the charge. Patterson now trying everything, desperately trying to close up. 11 seconds to Ruan Heineke, and that is going to be a further 8 seconds from these two to Harry Duplessis, who's got that run. He's been keeping the pressure on Keegan Bowen. He would hear about that critical mistake from Alan Patterson. Oh, and nearly follows up with his own, coming into turn the third last corner of the circuit. 23 corners out here, and these drivers feeling that pressure, and the tyres starting to feel that drop of 29 laps into this. 19 minutes and 40 seconds to go. This is now a fight down to the wire through each of the different classes. It's coming into theoretical chances as Sean Herrera puts in his personal best on that last lap with a 2:01.037. His personal best throughout the entirety of the race. He's 13 seconds behind. Jason Farmer now closes down that gap to Bago Krobler. 3.8 seconds. Bago did the fastest lap time in the race, but his last lap of a 2:01.3 definitely isn't keeping him ahead of Jason Farmer, who set a 2-minute 0.6 on the last lap. Farmer is dialing it up. He is going that little bit more. He's going to apply that little bit of pressure. So Bago for Team Wolf will be going and making his call on the pit stops. He needs to ensure that every back marker is going to play well with him. Luca Palmrosa will see in the rearview mirror that Bago Krobler is on his way. Bago will want to clear him down the straightaway and not find themselves into the corners with Gianluca. Gianluca's going to keep on the power though. He's trying to make up a bit of time in this race to his teammate, Kieran Harris, who's in 29th position. There is a minute and 32 seconds between them, but the two drivers still circulating out there, hopeful for gaining a few points into this race and trying to see what they can do for the championship. Now, for the Pro-Am side of things, Harry Duplessis trying to see what he can do behind Keegan Bowen. Both drivers find themselves behind Ludwig Zitzmann out in the Audi R8. Keegan puts a wheel wrong though, gets a little bit out of shape, bottoms out the car, looks towards the left-hand side of Ludwig, but under braking, the Ravenous team now trying to see what they can do as Ludwig gets a kick down on the rear. He does dive to the inside to allow both Keegan and the likes of Harry Duplessis to get that pass done and dusted. William Nagiri is going to be further up the road to try and clear through. Unfortunately for both these drivers, they're going to find him in the mountain. Björn Heineke putting pressure on Herman Whitner. Now this is an interesting fight. Both drivers have completed their pit stops and it's an out-and-out brawl between them to go that little bit further. The Griffin Sim Racing team up against the Extreme Sim Racing, going and moving forward. That JT that you see on the bottom is their title sponsor, Jutec, being part of it. And Herman hoping to bring the Jutec name to the sharp end of the field. A critical call in pit stops, hoping to make it work out. As we do see Keegan collecting the wall on the way up. Ferry coming off the gas a little bit more, feeling a little less confident in the Kramadoulis Racing machine as he fights his way through. That little bit of confidence starting to wary as through Skyline, putting a wheel wrong. He's not finding that grip he once had. And with the track starting to cool down, the tires starting to wear out, these drivers now trying to see what they can do to make it work. And Alan Patterson will be willing for a mistake to happen. He's 11 seconds back from this fight ahead of him. They've closed up 7 seconds to Keegan Bowen and Harry Duplessis. And with that being said, it's a marker of who's going to be able to go that little bit further. Bago Krobler now 3.2 seconds ahead of Jason Farmer as they make their way through. Bago with a little bit of clear air ahead of him will try and keep forward. Next driver that he's got to clear through is Gerald Pretorius, 27th position, 6 seconds up the road. And you can see Farmer hunting him down in the background. For Bago, he's got a clear pass. Gerald Pretorius, Chris Heineke, Anton Lummers, Chris Krief, Henry Platt, Jochen Adair, all of the drivers further up the road. And on that last lap, dialing it up yet again, Farmer quicker than Krobler. Krobler losing a bit of time out on circuit as that little bit of grip starting to fall away on the Team Wolf Lamborghini. He's prioritizing on just keeping out of the wall, not taking any major risks out on the circuit, while Farmer is putting it all on the line. A little bit more of a risky approach to see if that's going to come out as a solid run for him. However, it may be a double-edged blade as well. So for Bago, taking the more sensible back-off approach, Farmer is going win it or bin it here at Bathurst. And remember the quote from Tim Curry I said at the beginning of the broadcast, at top of the hour, going and saying, you best, if you're going to dream it, don't dream it, be it. Well, he's not dreaming about winning it, he's about being the winner here at the top of the mountain. Kerry Duplessis and Keegan Bowen still continue their fight with one another, and that's just allowing Herman Whitner to draw in a bit closer. Chris Heineke and Anton Lummers find themselves out on circuit. Lummers going and putting that little bit of pressure on Chris Heineke as Gerald Pretorius finds himself a little bit further back. You could see that Mustang absolutely trying to keep it all together. These drivers are feeling the wear and tear as, unfortunately, yet another driver drops out. 29 still remain. 29 hopefuls look to see it through to conquer the mountain here at Bathurst, out in Australia. A circuit that now heads into the dark. 12 minutes past 8 p.m. here in some time. And out in the virtual grandstands, life getting a little bit more interesting. You best start getting a bit of a light out as Hunty Maibu finds himself off circuit. He allows Keegan Bowen and Harry Duplessis to clear on through with no block coming in. Both Keegan and Clary are going to be quite thankful of that one as they catch up to Willie Nageri, who has had some near misses at the top of the hill at Skyline. You'll see both these two coming through. He'll get the blue flag as well. It's an information flag saying, hold your racing line, be predictable, and you're not allowed to find the guys into the corner. However, for Willie Nageri, he's trying to also make up a bit of time in this race. He holds on to 22nd position. He's trying to catch up to Conrad Martin, 3 seconds up the road from him. And it's going to be just applying that little bit of pressure as Keegan Bone now caught in the mountain, not finding an easy time. Willie holds the inside line, forcing Keegan out wide. A little bit of understeer creeping in. And unfortunately, oh, big impact at the top of the hill. Keegan having to get on the brakes. And Willie finds himself hard into the wall. He tries to bring that car a little bit more under easier drive. And now finds himself in for a world of hurt. Huntsy Myberg catches it at the top of the hill, and unfortunately not having an easy time. As we take a look at Huntsy Myberg, he sees Willie Nageri bouncing off the wall, slows up and just minds out of the way. Huntsy Myberg going and retiring out of the race. An interesting call for Huntsy. No damage to the car, but just retiring the car out of the race. An odd call coming out of the Pandacity machine as Willie Nageri finds himself into the wall and unfortunately out of the running. He had a solid impact on the way through, damage to the suspension at the dipper, and unfortunately that little bit more damage forcing him to tow back as he minded out of the way into Bentley Corner, just get towed back by the marshals. And well, not the way he wants his race to end off here tonight. 11 minutes still to go. He's hoping to get that car sorted out and get back out onto the track as Jaco Nadir and Jack Darts fight it out for position. 14th and 13th position. Jack Darts still needs a pit. Chris Beermister further up the road, managing to clear on his way through. Now trying to see if he can keep that run. He still needs a pit as well. Jack Darts deciding, right, I'm done. I'm in the pits. Trying to get that pit stop done and dusted and see what I can do to make it work out in my favor. Now, with that being said, Harry Duplessis and Keegan Bone had a near miss up at the top of the hill. Still find themselves out on circuit. Bago Krobler managing to clear on past the field as he gets past Gerard Pistorius at Biltong Power, mining out of the way and not providing too much of a tow. Oh, big impact for Schultz, losing at the top of the hill. Schultz loses it at the top on the way through. That's going to bring him a little bit into the clutches of Martin Rotenbach. Martin will know Michael Schultz with damage and in towards the corner as well. Down at the Forest elbow. Even more damage to the Porsche, and you can see broken wing, broken suspension. This is a Porsche that's ailing and it needs to do one more pit stop. It's going to be massive repair work from leading out the field. He is fighting tooth and nail to keep it in a straight line as the lead changes over for the Pro-Am. Martin Rotenbach takes over. He sees the wounded of Michael Schultz. It has all been taken away from him. Jaco Nadir finds himself off at the top of Skyline, letting the car roll back as Christian Zetzman finds himself off at Skyline. What on earth is going on here? As the driver's having a problem. Let's take a look at what happened to each of these drivers. So Christian Zetzman and Jaco Nadir chasing their way through. It's going to be Zetzman into the dirt. Nadir falls off in sympathy, collects the wall just in front of Henry Platt, and you can see the damage on the one of Jaco Nadir. Christian Zetzman will see the wounded going, oh man, what on earth happened out there? And falls off in sympathy. Schultz into the pits with major repair work. Harry Duplessis into the pits. And that's going to be Martin Rotenbach now into the lead, trying to keep it all together. And Patterson will find himself up into second place. Can he keep this car alive? Can he survive the mountain to capture a podium here tonight? Bago Krobler and Jason Farmer find themselves 3 seconds apart, with Bago Krobler's last lap time of a 2:01.8 and Farmer a 2:01.0. Bago under threat for that lead of the race with one pit stop to go. Sean Lerero holds on to third and trying to keep himself out into the fight and looking to capture the third place. Jared Bacon still needs a pit along with Martin Rosenbach, and Keegan Bowen holds on to 6th position as he did have his fighting buddy pull into the pits and getting himself sorted out there. Keegan Bowen, last of the runners that need to do their final pit stop. 29 cars remain. Ryan Heineke trying to keep going as, Patterson collects it at the top. Patterson collects it at the top, and this is going to be nightmare. Harry Duplessis hunting him down now. Patterson with damage to the car now needs to keep that Ferrari pointing straight. You can see the damage to the sharp end, and with 7 minutes and 45 seconds to go, this is now an out-and-out race. Herman Wepner finds himself behind Ryan Heineke after leading up for a bit of time between these two. Heineke manages to usurp Wepner, and now the fight is on. Top 6 need a pit, and it's all cards of who is going to be where. Kerry Duplessis 1.8 seconds behind Henry Platt, and that is 8 seconds behind Patterson. So 9 seconds separate third and second of the Pro-Am, with Martin Rotenbach having his race falling into his hands. Continues on the drive. It's going to be just about keeping it clean to win out here tonight. Bego Krobler, now 2.7 seconds remain between these two, and it's going to come down to the final pit stop to make it work. He does see Anton Lummers ahead of him. He sees Willie Nagiri as well, who's trying to take on the fight further up the field. Now, this is where the crucial pull comes in. Bego Krobler with 6.5 minutes to go. Anton Lummers pulls off to the right-hand side, allows Bego through. Jason Farmer will be asking for the exact same courtesy, to looking to see what he can do. And Lummers is in a bit of a pound seat here, as we do see the Midnight Racing going straight on. And I do think that was Gianluca Pomrosa. Yes, he did. Going off circuit, finding himself back on. He's in 27th position. 32 starters, 27 remain, and drivers all fighting their way through. This is turning into an absolute brawl between each of these drivers. Ludwig Zetzman leads out against his brother Christian Zetzman, and that is for 21st and 22nd position. But Martin Rotenbach into the pits, now serving his final pit stop, as Alan Patterson down the Conrad Straight with damage to his car, trying to limit the amount of issues. Only 8 seconds between himself and Harry Duplessis for that second and third place. He will see Martin Rotenbach into the pits, and for Patterson you can see the lights flickering as that damage to the car most certainly starting to take a bit of strain out there. Martin leaving pit lane will manage to get ahead of Patterson, as he does get off the button clean with no problems, and it's going to be him into the lead. Keegan Bowen pulls into the pits, and that's going to allow Henry Pite to clear on through as well. Ryan Heineke and Herman Wepner find themselves fighting out for 5th and 6th up the mountain, with Heineke holding on to that top 5, looking to try and close up to this man here, Jared McComb, with the endurance lights on. That McLaren holds on in 4th place. Sean Lerero, Jason Farmer, and Bego Krobler. Can Team Wolf put themselves out on the podium, or is it going to be a Griffin Sim Racing lockout towards top? Chris Griff finds himself off into the weeds, outbraking himself at the end of the Conrad Straight, through the kink on the brakes, turns in, and the Ferrari just not complying with him. Does Martin out of the way, looks for a safe rejoin as well. Do not read the chat well, you're in for the marks. Jason Farmer pulls into the pits, a crucial call, while Bego Krobler carries on the race to see what he can do. Sean Lerero will take up that 2nd place, and we'll be seeing if he can get on the way. Jason Farmer in the box. Can he get out ahead of this man here, Jared McComb, who can provide a bit of support for his teammate? Or will Farmer just be able to get ahead. He does see the Midnight Racing come out through and will catch up to the back of the BMW. Farmer now into third. Needs to put in quali laps. He needs to have absolute clear road to make it work. And there's the blue flags being waved for the likes of our 27th position of Kieran Harris. He minds out of the way, allows Farmer to clear on through. 10 seconds to Sean Loureiro, his teammate, who's 21 seconds to Bego Krobler. A pit stop in and out for Jason Farmer was 32 seconds. Bego Krobler needs to have 32 seconds in the next 2 minutes and 56 seconds. He's right behind Willie Naguri. He will want to clear past this Ferrari. Willie pulls over to the right, a little bit of a lift. Bego had to try and dart out of the way, but he also got that slight lift off the throttle, going and compromising his time. He is currently 30 seconds ahead of Farmer. Can he make this work? It's going to have to be a desperate move to make this run. It's going to be a fight out for the next 2 minutes. Is Bego going to pull into the pits? He is. Bego dives into the box, and it's going to be Sean Loureiro now looking to take up that charge. He will also look to dive into the box, as this is going to be crucial calls. Jeremy Coombe will need to dive into the box as well. He's 20 seconds clear of Ren Heineke and will want to make it work for him. Loureiro into the pits. Farmer coming through as Bego finds himself hitting the blocks. It's now or never. Farmer through the final corner. Now closes down the gap. Bego off the jacks. Up and going. Coming out of the pits. Off the pit limiter. And it's a race through as Bego exits pit lane. There is the blue of Farmer. He manages to get out ahead. But they have got Francois Boerter ahead of them in 17th position. Back markers will come into play for these drivers, and for Bego, he needs a clear run. He clears past Boerter and allows an easy run, while Farmer will catch him in the mountain. This is going to be a nightmare for them to clear on through, as a big impact coming in. Jack Darts coming into contact, and that was against Chris Biermestay, so he loses out the rear after a bit of a run. Mustang clearing through, and here's Chris Biermestay. Bang! Nowhere to go. Jack Darts moved forward. Chris getting caught out, and unfortunately Jack Darts taking that impact. As we heard our race control, final lap for Bego Krobler, 2.9 seconds ahead of Jason Farmer, who's caught behind Boerter on the way through. Farmer with nowhere to go, desperate for a pass, desperate for a move, but Krobler with a solid bit of run. Boerter mines out of the way, but it has only been just too late as Bego bails down the Conrad straight. It's down to the wire. It was 2 seconds out of the box, and Bego now finds only 4 more corners remain as he's trying to make it work. In through the left, in through the right. 1 more corner to go. In through the final, and it's going to be Team Wolf. Bego Krobler, 2.9 seconds, going 3 seconds, will take the win of the race on a late call to the pit stop. Farmer fought tooth and nail to bring it back, will take second, and Griffin Sim Racing's very own Sean Loureiro will take up that third place on a stellar run and kept it clean. He kept out of trouble. Loureiro will take that third place, with Ren Heineke going and following up. Fights out against Whitner and will be happy on a solid result. A 4th place with Herman Whitner taking up that 5th. And around the corner, Martin Rotenbach for the HSC takes the win here tonight, with Jared Raccoon right behind him. But it's going to be Alan Patterson, wounded, limping and fighting. PWSR finds 2nd place on the run. And what a drive on his part to bring it from the brink. Henry Platt, despite it all, and broken nose from last to 9th. Overall, a stellar result with Keegan Bowen rounding out that top 10 Third place going to Harry Duplessis in the Pro-Am field. Chris Harnecker, Chris Biermester, Anton Lubbers now find their way to the line. Christian Zetman loses out to his brother Ludwig, who will finish out in that 19th position. So Christian Zetman, Jack Dart finds himself with a stop-go 30-second penalty. Unfortunately, due to coming off the pit limiter a little bit early. Wow, oh wow. Folks, we got to see a bit of history made here tonight. And Team Wolf taking the win in the Pro. But it's Griffin Sim Racing taking a 2-3 in the Pro. Alan Patterson takes a second behind a solid HSC run. And man, oh man, what a race here tonight. What a drive. And what an incredible competition. All surviving the mountain here tonight. Bathurst put on a show and the drivers had to think outside of the box. Each trying to think that little bit more and having to really make it work here tonight. But a solid result from each of our competitors on an impressive drive. Bago Corblet, Jason Farmer, and Sean Herrero taking up that top three, going and putting in a solid run. With the likes of Martin Rotenbach, Alan Patterson, and Harry Duplessis will round out your top three here tonight. What a manic drive for each of these competitors that had to brave the mountain. 32 started with 27 finishing here tonight. What can you say other than a race for the ages and drivers having to really work their way through? A manic run, a brilliant charge, but with that being said, our drivers putting on an absolute performance, and I can't wait to have a chat to them to get their feedback on tonight's race, because I don't think anyone had an opportunity to just get a little bit of breathing room out there. Everyone had to think a little bit more here at Bathurst what their race is going to look like, and ultimately how is it all going to feed out. So with that being said, we're going to have a chat to our drivers on a solid result here tonight and ultimately see what their thoughts were. Starting off with our third place driver in the Pro field, we're going to pull in Sean Herrero in just a few moments out of the cool down room to go and have a chat to him after coming up third place, keeping it clean in the race. We also will have a chat to our Pro-Am field. So that being said, we're just allowing everyone to come through to be a part of our cool down and get our drivers to come through to join us here in the commentary side to give their feedback on the race. Folks, what's been your thoughts of the race? How did you feel about it? And what a manic drive through it all. Came down to the final pit stops to ultimately see everyone come at the top of the blocks and ultimately to move their way forward. And we got to see some incredible racing right the way through down to the wire. Everyone had to think a little bit more of what their race was going to look like, and ultimately who was going to stay in for that top run all the way through. So, being said, let's see if we can try and get our Pro-Am driver to come and have a chat to us, because I see there is no other Pro-Am driver that's going to be joining us here tonight by the looks of it. Which, well, got to give it up to Harry on a monumental drive on his part to bring it across the line. So we'll bring him up, just have a chat to us and give you his thoughts from a Pro-Am perspective. A third place here tonight for him and a solid result nonetheless to make it work. So, that being said, let's bring him in. Harry Duplessis, welcome to the commentary box and a third place here tonight. What a drive out there. You had to really work a little bit hard out there. You also were the last surviving of your team. How was it here at Bathurst for you?
Yeah, I'm just glad it's done now. It's been a tough race. The mountain's always tough. But yeah, it's also just at 1.5 seconds worth of damage on the mountain. didn't repair any damage in the pit, so that's a first for me as well. Got lucky in the mountain a few times with spinning cars and avoiding accidents, and so a few close calls. Left some paint on the walls as well, but yeah, we made it to the end and onto the podium.
With that being said, take us through the race itself for you. That start, you were in the mid pack. You're having to think a little bit outside the box. Take us through what was the game plan coming into Bathurst. It's never an easy circuit, and well, you started in a part that no driver actually wants to be in, and that's the middle of the entirety of the thing.
Yeah, obviously qualifying here is key. So getting as far from the mid pack as possible to the front didn't happen. So yeah, just played it safe. Luckily, we didn't have any big accidents. And then yeah, just started pushing. As always, we've got a few people that goes into the pits on lap 1 or 2, which kind of spreads out the field. Yeah, then Vessel had that incident in the mountain. I don't know even who it was, with BMW sideways. He couldn't avoid it. Smashed into him, opened the road for me. I just went past. But yeah, from there on, I was just pushing, sit there behind Keegan for a while. I thought I could get him, but that Mustang is way too quick on the straights. Then thought, okay, maybe it's time to just go into the pits. But yeah, I think I just put in a bit more fuel than was necessary, and yeah, he just kept in front. But yeah, no incidents, keeping it clean. But it was quali laps all the way, trying to get past him, but he was just too clean, and yeah, I couldn't get it done.
Well, with that being said, a solid result for you, a great one to finish up into the top 10 overall, and a solid bit of fun out there. Looking towards the rest of the season, now that you've managed to put yourself into third place here tonight, what's the game plan for the second half of the season and to bring the Crumdoulis Racing Ferrari to the sharp end to take on the fight for the championship?
Yeah, so I didn't really expect much from Bathurst, so I just took the pressure off. So maybe that's the key for the next races as well. Just take it slow, and keys being well, maybe slow is fast. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm going with for the next races then.
Well, a solid result nonetheless. And before we let you go to enjoy the celebrations after a triumphant third place, a solid run putting pressure onto the pros, anything you would like to say to our title sponsor, EG Evolve Simulator Rigs, to everyone here out in the virtual grandstand, flying into Australia, joining us out there in the virtual grandstands and seeing the GSR car up into the podium positions?
Yeah, thanks for everyone that makes it possible. Thanks to you, Stephen, that's also doing the commentary. And then, yeah, to the team, Vessel didn't make it to the end, so I had to do my in-lap on my own, but at least ons is nie laaste nie.
I love to hear it, Kerry. I can't wait to have a chat next week on an incredible run, and we look forward to seeing you fighting out yet again. You've been keeping up the consistency this season, and looking forward to seeing you carrying it through till the very end. Well done once again on your third place.
Thanks, Stephen.
A solid result for Kerry Duplessis to move on forward. It does look like Sean Lerero is unfortunately not going to be joining us here tonight, which we did have him for a brief time. Unfortunately, deciding, no, that's not going to be him here tonight. And we'll be a little bit out of it, which is a bit sad, but we will get to have a chat to quite a few other drivers, being our second place hard charger, who had to fight all the way through, who put it all out on the line here tonight to try and catch up to the leader of our pro field, Jason Farmer, who gave it everything he could right down to the wire. The pit stops just not working out for him here tonight, and we look forward to having a chat to him. We'll bring him in for a bit of a chat. Jason Farmer, welcome to the commentary box. And what a race, buddy. You had to fight tooth and nail to try and make it through to the sharp end of the field. Unfortunately, pit stop's not working here tonight, but you really left it all out on the circuit here tonight.
What's up, Stephen? Yeah, it was a good race. very close between myself and Bego. Yeah, like you said, I messed it up in the pits. First pit, I took the damage off to not cost myself time in the pit, and then I missed my box. So yeah, that was great. And yeah, but it was good. The blue flags were good as well. It was an awesome race, sweaty as well. Like the pace was quite awesome up front. Small few mistakes which put me a little bit behind Bego, and then it just kind of stayed like that the whole way. So yeah, it was fun. It was good.
With that being said, you were on the hard charge in the last 10 minutes. It was mental to see the lap times. What was that moment where you just flipped the switch, that you decided it's now or never to really make it work? And what does it take to go and just take a deep breath, put the hearts on the sleeves, and really leave nothing to chance here on the mountain? I mean, that is a drive that can either win it or bin it. And you went and chose the earlier to just go for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most of the race you're definitely pushing, but there's always that little bit that you hold back just to keep it kind of safe so that you're not in the walls all the time. And yeah, I think it was like the last 8 or 9 minutes, I saw that Bego was catching up to Gerard, which is one of my teammates. So I knew that if he caught him in the mountain, it would be a little bit slow, which could bring the gap down a bit. So yeah, I think that can again a little bit of extra motivation. And I was just like, it's 8 minutes, 9 minutes left. Just push, give it everything, get as close to the walls as possible. Yeah, it almost kind of worked out, but yeah, I was a little bit off. So yeah, it was good there. And also a great result for the team, P2, P3, P4. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Well, with that being said, it's most certainly helped out in the championship. You holding on to second, Henry Platt not quite having the result he wants. Sean Lorero will move up to third. How are you feeling for the second half of the championship? I mean, you've been in that fight. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride for you. A fourth in round one, a second in round two, a first in round three, a fifth in round four, a second here. I mean, it has been an up and down run, but now it's time to really start dialing it up as we're heading into the latter parts of the championship.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got to figure out a way to get Bego off the top step. So once we can do that, then I think we can definitely challenge. I'm on his pace, but I think the consistency a little bit for the past few weeks hasn't been there for me. So I'll definitely dial that in next week. Yeah, it's going to be a tight run to the end for sure. And also with Sean now coming in and getting up into the podium positions as well in the championship, that's awesome. So yeah, hopefully we can hold it.
Well, it's in for a solid run, and you definitely had people cheering on the sidelines, not only for the team, but also for yourself. Anything you want to say to the drivers, to the teams, to, well, our title spot at EG Evolved, but also to the fans out there joining here down under and really just getting behind the racing?
For sure. Yeah, big thank you to EG Evolved for sponsoring this championship, and obviously RaceFace as well for everything in the background and keeping all the servers up and giving us train time for practice and things like that. Also the community itself, like everybody seems to be gelling quite well, which is very cool. There's hard fighting, but there's also a bit of respect around, which is lacquer. And then yeah, to you, Stephen, thanks for the streams. I mean, we always go back and rewatch them. That's always exciting for us as well. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And then obviously to the fans, like, you guys are amazing, and we can't do this without you. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic that you're with us every week. And yeah, so thank you very much.
Well, a great one. Congratulations, a stellar race, and we look forward to seeing what you can do next week. Bego got the upper hand here tonight, but I'm sure it's going to be an absolute dogfight as we head out to Barcelona for round 6.
100%. Thanks, Stephen.
Jason Farmer taking up second place here tonight for the Griffin Sim Racing team, putting on a brilliant show. But there can only be one winner, one person who can conquer the mountain, and it is Bego Krobler out in the Lamborghini. Bego, a win here tonight, but most certainly a very heart-in-mouth moment towards the end. How are you feeling from a race as a whole where it was, well, you had the pressure from start to finish?
How's it, Stephen? Yeah, feeling good. It's my favorite track, so yeah, really happy to win what will probably be the last league race we do here, sadly. So yeah, really happy with that.
A big run in for it, and well, some heartbreaking news there. Care to elaborate, or is it something for a little bit later?
No, well, I think we've already communicated that next season will probably be the last season on ACC. Well, that's the plan, at least for now. We'll probably be moving over to something else as our main sim, and we don't generally run the same track in consecutive seasons. So I don't think we're going to be doing Bathurst again next season. Although I'm not 100% sure, but I'd be very surprised. So I think this was probably the last Bathurst league race, at least on ACC. Obviously, we've got the Enduro still coming this weekend, so looking forward to that as well. But yeah, from RaceFace's side, at least, I think this was probably the last league race here.
Well, with that being said, you put in a stellar bit of effort to get the jump off the line to move forward. How was the last 10 minutes for you? The pit stop, Jason Farmer making the early call to get into the pits, you running that a little bit longer. It was nail-biting by the looks of it, but how was it for you in the car, knowing the difference in strategy and knowing that, well, there's going to be a 2-second difference at the end?
Yeah, well, I mean, not just the last 10 minutes. I think the whole race was pretty tense from that point of view. I think I don't think the gap was ever more than like 4.5 seconds. I think at its most it was 4.5 seconds, and on the mountain, that's one small mistake, and that 4.5 seconds disappears very quickly. So the whole race was pretty tense. And then yeah, obviously with back markers, it's a bit of a gamble because you can have a 8 or 9 or 10 second gap to the next blue flag car, and he can sort of park it on the mountain and block the road. So yeah, it was. I felt like every lap I stay out is sort of taking a gamble, but then I also felt like pitting early might be a gamble as well, because you're not sure where you're going to drop back to and in what kind of traffic you're going to drop back to. So I just sort of took it lap by lap, and when Jason went in, I think I was planning to go in that lap, and then I think I made a little mistake just before getting to pit entry, and then I thought, no, let's not go into the pits like that, because then I'll likely make a mistake on pit entry as well. So I just took another lap to settle down, and then I saw Jason went in, so I went in the next lap, and then yeah, like you say, came out with about a 2-second gap, which I knew if I just didn't make any silly mistakes would be enough. So yeah, just brought it home.
Well, a solid drive on your part to make it work here tonight. A brilliant result. That being said, anything you would like to say to everyone out in the virtual grandstands, going to keep an eye on all the incredible battles out there, to our title sponsor EG Evolved, and most certainly to our virtual grandstands cheering out and really making this being a part of an incredible event.
Yeah, I think we say it every week, but just again, huge shout out to the guys at EG. You hear every week you hear another story about something great they did for somebody in the community. So it's a pleasure to be associated with Andres and the boys at EG, and huge thanks to them for what they do for RaceFace, and allowing us to do what we do again. Yeah, and then big shout out to Jason as well. Really pushed this all the way, and it was a hell of a race. And I said to him now in the waiting room, I am moeg now. That was mentally and physically taxing, but it's why we do this. So we had a really good time. Yeah, and then everybody that watches every week, like I say, every week I'm still blown away by how many views we get and the interaction we get on the streams when you go and look back at the live chat. So it's amazing to see, and yeah, if you guys keep watching, we'll keep putting on a show. So thanks.
Absolutely a solid run, and we look forward to going and seeing what you can do heading into Barcelona next week. Well done on the win here tonight and bringing that Lamborghini across the line in first place. Bego Robler of Team Wolf. So, with that being said, Bego takes the win here tonight. Farmer takes second, and the Griffin Sim Racing putting into the fight. Alan Patterson brings the car limped across the line in second place, but it was Harry who managed to take up that third place in the GSR Ferrari. But ultimately, it all comes to a close. Now, here tonight at Bathurst, we say farewell to a legendary circuit, and we look forward to the next. Barcelona is gonna be our incredible circuit for September 3rd. You can catch up with all the racing action for that right here on our YouTube channel, RaceFace.Pro. And we look forward to seeing you guys joining us back here for some incredible action. But with that being said, this weekend, and entries are still open, you can head over to SimGrid, join up with our ERA and RaceFace.Pro Endurance. It's a 6-hour around the legendary circuit of Bathurst. Both leagues are saying farewell to ACC for 2026. And, well, it's going to be the last Enduro around Bathurst. So, for ACC, you want to grab your mates, you want to be a part of the show, you want to come racing, link up down in the Discord, sign up on simgrid.pro, and we look for simgrid.com, and we look forward to seeing you guys this weekend for the upcoming races next week for our race for round 6 of the EG RaceFace.Pro GT3 ACC Championship for season 27. Big shout out to our title sponsor EG Evolved. If you're looking for all your sim racing needs, your flight sim, farming sim, or just going and enjoying driving, flying, or just having a ton of fun out there, EG Evolved has got everything for you for every budget point. They've also now got one, if you're looking to get yourself started within the world of sim racing at a easier price, because we all know that the gear is rather expensive at times. EG has got something that's a little bit easier on the pocket for you, as they're running a new special. You can get the FGT Pro Cockpit Plus Monitor Mount for $21,500, or go and use their Payflex, which ends the 31st of August. You pay in a $5,375 over the course of 4 months, and you get a chance to get behind the wheel of the next level racing FGT Pro. It's FIA license, it's 50 millimeters of steel tube chassis. That makes it a little bit easier to carry, and it can take on a 25 Newton meter direct drive wheel without flexing. So a low price for an easier run, and you don't have to go and dump all that cash right at once. You can pay it off. That makes it a little bit easier to get behind the sport, get into a bit of fun, and that very same rig you can use for flight sim and farming sim. How's that for a bit of fun to go and try out something new and get yourself behind the seat? Folks, it's been exciting here at RaceFace.Pro. It's been exciting here at Bathurst, but we got to say farewell. Big thank you to all our drivers, to all our teams. Congratulations to everyone coming across the line in both our Pro-Am and our Amagold Silver servers that we're running. We look forward to seeing you this weekend. And most importantly, a big thank you to you, the legends behind the virtual grandstands, cheering on from the sidelines, getting behind the drivers, getting behind the teams, and going and following us in this incredible battle. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon, and let us know, what do you think is going to be a charge to the run for Barcelona? Hot circuit, a difficult circuit, and who do you think's going to win that one in both our Pro and Pro? My name is Stephen Kernick, and from everyone behind the scenes here, Tim, our cameraman, Jim, our marshal, and we'd like to say thank you very much, and like always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.